You know the guy. You see him in every gym. His face is turning a deep shade of crimson, veins popping from his forehead, every muscle shaking as he grunts and screams to grind out one last representative. He drops the weight with a thunderous crash, gasping for air with a triumphant look on his face. He believes, he's been told to believe, that this is the only way to grow. This is no pain, no gain in the flesh. You've probably been told the same thing. You've read it in magazines, seen it in workout montages, and heard it from the biggest person in your gym. The message is clear. Every set has to be a war. If you aren't training to absolute muscular failure, you're leaving gains on the table. It's a comforting lie because it's simple. It makes effort the only thing that matters. Go to failure, get results. Don't, and you're just wasting your time. But what if that sacred cow of the fitness world is not only wrong but is the very thing sabotaging your muscle growth? What if the path to more muscle and more strength isn't about annihilating yourself in every session, but about training smarter, with more precision, and with a real understanding of what actually makes a muscle grow? In this video, we're going to dismantle the training to failure lie. We'll look at the science of muscle growth, nervous system fatigue, and recovery. We will show you why pushing to your absolute limit, set after set, is a strategy of diminishing returns that leads to stagnation and injury. Most importantly, I'll give you a clear, evidence-based framework to replace this outdated dogma, a system that will let you train with incredible intensity and purpose, unlocking consistent gains you didn't think were possible. It's time to stop training to failure and start training for success. Section 1. The anatomy of a lie. What is true muscular failure? Before we can debunk the myth, we need to be crystal clear on what we're talking about. The term, training to failure, gets thrown around so casually it's almost lost its meaning. For a lot of people, it's just the point where a set starts to feel really hard, the muscle burns, and the reps slow down. But physiologically speaking, that isn't failure. That's just the beginning of the productive part of your set. To really get this, we need to define the different types of failure. First, there's technical failure. This is the most important one to recognize. Technical failure is the point where you can no longer perform another representative with good, safe form. Maybe your back starts to round on a deadlift, your hips shoot up too early in a squat, or you have to use a ton of body English to curl a dumbbell. You might still be able to move the weight, but you're not using the target muscle properly, and you're dramatically increasing your risk of injury. Continuing past technical failure is a game of Russian roulette with your joints. Second, we have concentric muscular failure. This is what most people think of as failure. It's the point where, even with maximum effort and good form, you physically cannot complete the lifting part of a representative. Imagine you're on the bench press. You lower the bar to your chest, but you simply cannot press it back up. Your muscles are so fatigued they can't generate enough force. That is true momentary muscular failure. And finally, there's total failure. This is an extreme state where your muscles can't even control the weight on the way down. This is the guy who fails on the bench press and the bar comes crashing down on him. You should almost never be aiming for this. It provides zero extra benefit over concentric failure and carries a huge risk of serious injury. So why do these distinctions matter? Because most of the benefit people think comes from training to failure actually comes from just getting close to it. The confusion between feeling a burn and reaching true concentric failure has led lifters to believe every set must be an all-out war. They end up chasing the feeling of exhaustion instead of the stimulus for growth. Here's what's happening in your body. When you start a set, your brain recruits motor units in the muscle. Think of a motor unit as a nerve and all the muscle fibers it controls. Your body recruits them in order, From the smallest, weakest ones to the largest, most powerful ones, the fast-twitch fibers. As the set gets harder, your brain has to recruit more and more of these big, high-threshold motor units. It's the recruitment and fatiguing of these fibers that have the greatest potential for growth. The argument for training to failure is that you only get this full recruitment in those last, grinding reps. And while it's true the final reps are where the magic happens, the lie is that you have to hit that absolute 0 reps left moment to get the benefit. As we're about to see, the science tells a very different story. Understanding that failure is a specific physiological point, not just a feeling, is the first step to freeing yourself from its tyranny. Section 2. The Gospel of Grind. Why we worship at the altar of failure. The idea that you must train to failure is one of the toughest myths in fitness. It's been passed down for decades, and it's deeply rooted in the culture of bodybuilding and strength training. To move past it, we have to understand why it's so popular in the first place. First off, it's simple. The logic feels solid. The last reps are the hardest, so they must do the most good. Muscle growth happens when you push your body beyond its limits. What's a clearer signal to adapt than pushing a muscle to its absolute point of failure? It feels right. That shaky, burning sensation on the last representative feels productive. The exhaustion afterward feels like a badge of honor. It's a black and white rule in a world of confusing fitness advice. Go to failure? Good, you're growing. No? You're wasting your time. This mindset was glorified by the golden era of bodybuilding. We saw photos of legends like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Tom Platz pushing themselves through impossibly grueling workouts. They talked about pushing past the pain barrier. Training montages in movies like Pumping Iron and Rocky didn't show the hero stopping with a few reps left in the tank. They showed them collapsing under the weight, fighting for every last inch. This created a powerful story. Champions are forged in failure. Anything less is for the uncommitted. Later, guys like Mike Mentzer and Dorian Yates became famous for a high-intensity approach that was all about taking a few sets to absolute, brutal failure. The fitness media ran with this for decades, with headlines like, "Blast your biceps to failure." It's a great marketing message because it romanticizes suffering and equates raw effort with results. It tells you the key isn't some complex scientific formula, but pure grit. There's a psychological angle, too. Going to failure gives you a clear stopping point. You don't have to wonder if you could have done more, you know you couldn't. This can be really satisfying. It's easier to follow the command, "Go until you can't go anymore," than to use a more nuanced concept like estimating reps left in reserve. This logic is built on a grain of truth. Activating your most powerful motor units is critical for growth. And yes, as you get closer to failure, you recruit more of them. The mistake is assuming the point of failure itself holds some magical growth stimulus you can't find in the reps just before it. That's like thinking that to get the benefit of a hot oven, you have to actually touch the heating element. You don't. You just need to be close enough to feel its powerful heat. This worship of failure is so ingrained that questioning it can feel like you're advocating for being lazy. But the real, easy way out is blindly following this dogma. The harder, and much more effective, path is to train with intelligence, to understand that the goal is to stimulate, not annihilate. The cult of failure mistakes exhaustion for the cause of growth. The real cause is creating enough mechanical tension, and you don't need to drive your car off a cliff to do that. You just need to press the accelerator hard enough. Section 3. The high cost of failure. A strategy of diminishing returns. For years, we've assumed that the stimulus from training to failure outweighs the fatigue it generates. We've been so focused on the supposed benefit of that last representative that we've ignored the monumental cost. Going to failure isn't a free lunch. It's an incredibly expensive meal, and the bill comes in the form of systemic fatigue, longer recovery times, and ultimately, fewer gains. The biggest cost is the disproportionate amount of central nervous system, CNS, fatigue it creates. Your CNS, your brain and spinal cord, is the command center that tells your muscles to contract. When you do anything strenuous, your CNS gets tired. But training to absolute muscular failure is exceptionally taxing on it. Think of it this way. As you approach failure, your body is in a state of emergency. You're forcing your brain to send signals of maximum intensity to recruit every last available muscle fiber. This isn't just your muscles getting tired, it's a massive neural strain. Research has shown this neural fatigue can stick around long after your workout, sometimes for 30 minutes or more after just one set taken to failure. In practice, that set of squats you took to failure on Monday might still be affecting your nervous system's ability to fire up muscle fibers for your deadlift session on Wednesday. The fatigue is systemic. You feel sluggish, unmotivated, and weaker. Your performance tanks in later sets and even later workouts. You might hit a 10-rep max on your first set, but because of the accumulated CNS fatigue, you only manage 8 on the second, and a measly 6 on the third. You're digging a recovery hole so deep you can't climb out in time for your next session. Next, let's talk about muscle damage and recovery. Muscle growth is a cycle of stress, recovery, and adaptation. You apply stress, lifting, which causes micro-trauma to muscle fibers, and then your body repairs them bigger and stronger. But there's a sweet spot. You need enough stress to trigger a growth response, but not so much that your body can't recover in time. Training to failure, especially all the time, pushes you way past this sweet spot. Those last few grinding reps generate a massive amount of muscle damage. Instead of needing 48-72 hours to recover, your muscles might need 4, 5, or even 6 days. By the time you're truly recovered, you've missed the ideal window to train that muscle again. This slows down your training frequency, a critical factor for long-term growth. You're spending more time recovering from your workout than you were benefiting from it. This leads to the third major cost, an elevated risk of injury. Fatigue is the enemy of good technique. As you push to your absolute limit, your form deteriorates fast. This is especially dangerous on big compound lifts like squats, deadlifts, and the bench press. As your main muscles fail, your body desperately recruits other, less suitable muscles to help move the weight. This is when you see a lifter's back round on a deadlift or their knees cave in on a squat. These form breakdowns place immense stress on tendons, ligaments, and spinal discs. Going to failure on a bicep curl might hurt your ego. Going to failure on a heavy squat can lead to a progress-halting injury. The risk just doesn't justify the reward. Finally, training to failure introduces a lot of junk volume. Volume, your total sets and reps, is a key driver of muscle growth. But not all volume is equal. Junk volume is work that adds way more fatigue than stimulus. Those last 1 or 2 super grindy, form-breaking reps? That's junk volume. You're getting a massive dose of fatigue for a stimulus that's barely better than the representative that came before it. You'd be far better off stopping the set 1 or 2 reps earlier, resting, and then hitting another high-quality set. This lets you accumulate more productive volume over your training week, which is the real secret to long-term gains. It's like trying to chop down a tree by swinging an axe as hard as you can with your eyes closed. You might knock it down eventually, but you'll be exhausted, you'll probably hurt yourself, and a skilled lumberjack could have done it with half the effort. It's time to become that skilled lumberjack. Section 4. The voice of science. What the evidence actually says. For decades, the debate around failure was all anecdote and gym lore. But over the last 10-15 years, a ton of scientific research has given us clear, evidence-based answers. When we strip away the dogma and just look at the data, a consistent picture emerges. Training to failure isn't the magic bullet we thought it was. The science makes an important distinction between muscle growth, hypertrophy, and strength. They're related, but the best way to train for each is slightly different. Let's start with hypertrophy. The main driver of muscle growth is mechanical tension. Your muscles sense this tension, which kicks off a process that leads to bigger muscles. It's true that as you get closer to failure, mechanical tension increases because reps slow down and the working fibers are under tension for longer. Because of this, multiple meta-analyses show that training closer to failure is generally better for growth than staying far away from it. A very recent 2024 meta-analysis in sports medicine confirmed this, finding that muscle growth tended to increase as sets were taken closer to failure. However, the critical finding in this and other major reviews is that the benefit seems to plateau when you get very close. Training with 1-3 reps in reserve, RIR, meaning you end the set knowing you could have done 1-3 more good reps, appears to provide a nearly identical growth stimulus as going to absolute failure. A landmark 2022 meta-analysis published in the Journal of Sport and Health Science put it plainly: training to failure does not seem to be required for gains in muscle size. When total volume is matched, groups that train to failure and groups that stop a few reps short see similar muscle growth. That tiny, almost negligible extra stimulus you might get from the final representative is completely overshadowed by the massive fatigue cost we just talked about. You get all the growth stimulus you need in those challenging reps before failure, without the recovery debt. Now, let's look at strength. The story here is even clearer. Strength gains are primarily about lifting heavy loads and neural adaptations, your body getting more efficient at producing force. Recent analyses have shown that training to failure doesn't provide significant additional increases in muscle strength compared to non-failure training. A comprehensive 2024 analysis found that strength gains were minimally impacted by how close sets were taken to failure, suggesting the relationship isn't clear-cut and that other factors are more important. This makes total sense. To get stronger, you need to practice lifting heavy weights with good technique. Training to failure wrecks your form and generates so much CNS fatigue that it hurts your ability to perform high-quality reps. You're better off lifting a heavy load for, say, 3-5 reps, stopping with a couple of reps in the tank, resting, and repeating it. This lets you get in more high-quality, heavy work, which is what really drives strength. For maximizing strength, training to failure is not only unnecessary, it's often counterproductive. So why can you get the benefits without going all the way? It comes back to motor unit recruitment. The pro-failure camp argues you must go to failure to recruit all motor units. Physiologically, this isn't quite right. You achieve near maximal motor unit recruitment when you're still a few reps shy of failure. By the time you have 1-3 reps left in the tank, pretty much the entire team of muscle fibers is already on the job and working hard. Going to absolute failure is like forcing them to work until they collapse. It doesn't recruit more workers, it just incapacitates the ones you already have. This is where reps in reserve, RIR, becomes your most practical tool. RIR is simply a way to rate your effort. An RIR of 0 means you hit absolute concentric failure. An RIR of 1 means you stopped knowing you could have done exactly one more representative. An RIR of 2-3 means you had 2-3 good reps left. This is a high intensity. An RIR of 4-6 is a moderate intensity, great for warm-ups or recovery weeks. Using RIR allows you to train in that sweet spot, close enough to failure to maximize growth, but far enough to manage fatigue and maintain good form. It's the intelligent, nuanced approach that the "just go to failure" mantra ignores. The science doesn't tell us to be lazy, it tells us to be precise. Section 5. The solution: Training for success, not failure. Alright, so we've dismantled the myth and looked at the science. Now for the most important part. How do we actually use this information in the gym? The answer is a flexible, RIR-based approach that you can tailor to your experience level, your goals, and the specific exercises you're doing. This isn't another rigid dogma, it's a smart framework for making better decisions. The general principle. The 1-3 RIR sweet spot. For the vast majority of your work sets, especially for muscle growth, you should aim to finish with 1 to 3 reps in reserve, RIR. This is the evidence-based sweet spot. You're training hard enough to create a powerful growth stimulus but avoiding the massive fatigue and injury risk that comes with going to failure. This lets you perform high-quality reps, maintain perfect technique, and recover effectively, allowing you to get in more productive work over time. Tailoring the approach to your experience level, how close you should push isn't the same for everyone. Your training experience is a huge factor. For beginners, less than 1-2 years of consistent training. If you're new to lifting, your main goals are mastering technique and building a base of strength. For you, training to failure is a bad idea. Beginners make great progress without ever touching failure. Your focus should be on perfect form. Compound lifts, squats, deadlifts, bench press, stay further from failure, around 3-4 RIR. This gives you room to focus on executing each representative perfectly. Isolation and amp. Machine lifts, bicep curls, leg extensions. You can push a bit closer here, maybe to a 2-3 RIR. The risk is much lower on these exercises. The calibration exception. Occasionally taking a single set of a safe, machine-based exercise to failure can be a useful tool to learn what 0 RIR actually feels like. This helps you get better at estimating your RIR on all your other sets. For intermediate lifters, 2-4 years of consistent training. As an intermediate, your newbie gains have slowed down. You need a stronger stimulus to keep progressing, and your technique should be solid. Compound lifts. You'll spend most of your time in the 2-3 RIR range. You're pushing hard but always leaving a little in the tank to keep your form tight. Isolation and amp. Machine lifts. You can and should push these closer, frequently training in the 1-2 RIR range. Strategic use of failure. This is where you can start to strategically sprinkle in sets to failure, 0 RIR. A great way to do this is to take only the very last set of an isolation exercise to failure. This gives you that intense stimulus without ruining the rest of your workout. For advanced lifters, 5+ years of dedicated training. Advanced lifters are very close to their genetic potential and need an extremely potent stimulus to make more gains. For them, training to or even beyond failure becomes a more valuable tool, but one that still needs to be used carefully. Compound lifts. Even for advanced lifters, taking heavy compounds to failure is usually a poor choice. Most work should still be done in the 1-2 RIR range. You might push a final set to 0-1 RIR in the last week of a training block as a way to overreach before a deload. Isolation and amp. Machine lifts. This is where an advanced lifter can push the envelope, regularly training to failure, 0 RIR, on exercises like leg extensions, hamstring curls, and lateral raises to break through plateaus. Advanced overload techniques. Advanced lifters are the only ones who should really consider, beyond failure, techniques like drop sets, rest pause sets, or partial reps. These tools are incredibly effective for targeting a muscle, but they generate enormous fatigue and should be used sparingly within a well-planned training cycle. The bottom line: be an intelligent lifter. Moving away from the failure at all costs mindset is about shifting from being a brute force laborer to a skilled craftsman. It means being more in tune with your body and being honest about how many reps you really have left. It's understanding that the goal isn't to see how much you can punish yourself, but to provide the precise dose of stimulus your body needs to grow, and no more. Train hard, train with purpose, but train for success, not just for failure. CTA Call to Action. If this look into the science of training intensity has been valuable for you, and you're ready to start training more intelligently, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps the channel and tells the algorithm you want to see more of this kind of evidence-based content. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications. We're dedicated to cutting through the fitness noise and giving you practical, science-backed advice to get you the best results of your life. Finally, I want to hear from you. What's your experience been with training to failure? Are you on Team Failure or Team RIR? Let me know your thoughts and questions in the comments section below. I read every single one and will do my best to respond. Conclusion. So, what's the ultimate takeaway here? The no pain, no gain mantra, the idea that every set must be a fight to the death, is a lie. It's a lie that feels true because it's wrapped up in the romantic idea of hard work, but it's an inefficient way to pursue your goals. The science is clear. For strength, training to failure is unnecessary and often counterproductive. For muscle growth, training very close to failure, leaving 1, 2, or maybe 3 perfect reps in the tank, gives you virtually all of the muscle building benefits with a fraction of the systemic fatigue, muscle damage, and injury risk. This isn't an argument for taking it easy. Far from it. The reps in that 1-3 RIR zone are incredibly difficult and require immense focus. The difference is that this is productive effort. It's intensity with a purpose, not just for its own sake. It's about stimulating the muscle, not annihilating your nervous system. It's about being able to come back for your next session strong, recovered, and ready for another productive workout. Stop chasing failure. Start chasing progress. Stop ending your sets because you physically can't move the weight, and start ending them because you know it was the perfect stimulus. This is the shift from being a gym warrior to a smart strategist. It is the key to unlocking consistent, sustainable, long-term gains. Train hard, but train smart.